There is a word that keeps appearing in the private conversations surrounding Prince Harry right now. Not in his legal filings, not in his spokesperson's carefully drafted statements, not in the polished language of any press release that has come out of Montecito in the last 6 months. The word appears only in the accounts of people who have spoken to him directly in the weeks since his father's health took another turn for the worse. The word is hope. Prince Harry hopes. That is the language being used, not demands, not conditions, not the pointed litigation-adjacent vocabulary that has characterised so much of the Sussex public posture since January 2020. Hope. The kind of word that belongs to a son, not a strategist. The kind of word that does not survive contact with a press release. The kind of word that, when it surfaces through sources speaking to the Sunday Times and the Telegraph in the final days of March 2026, says something about where Harry actually is, emotionally, privately, beneath all the documentary footage and memoir chapters and Netflix negotiations, that no official statement ever could. What those sources are reporting is this. Prince Harry is hoping that King Charles will extend an invitation, a genuine family invitation, for Harry, Meghan, Archie and Lilibet to spend time at Sandringham this summer. Not a formal audience, not a negotiated diplomatic encounter choreographed by palace communications staff and reviewed by lawyers on both sides. Family time. The phrase the sources use is specific, family time. A phrase so ordinary, so deliberately undramatic, that its appearance in the context of this particular family, with this particular history, lands like something much larger than it sounds. Harry has seen his father twice in 2 years. Let that settle. Not twice in a difficult month, or twice in a complicated season of legal proceedings. Twice in 2 years. 2 visits between a son and a father who is 76 years old, who is being treated for cancer, whose public schedule has been reduced and managed with visible care since his diagnosis became public in February 2024. 2 visits between a man who wrote in his memoir that his father never hugged him enough, never fully showed up in the way a father should, and the same man who is now, according to those who know him, genuinely frightened by what his father's illness means for the time they have left. Sources close to Harry told the Sunday Times this week that the desire for his children to know their grandfather, to have real time with him at Sandringham, is not strategic. It is not a PR rehabilitation move. It is not the opening position in a negotiation about titles or security funding. It is the feeling of a 41-year-old man watching his father age through press photographs, worrying that the distance he chose, the distance he defended in 300 pages of memoir and 6 Netflix episodes and an Oprah interview watched by 50 million people, is about to become permanent in a way that cannot be undone. That is a human story, a genuine one, and it deserves to be named as such before anything else is said. But, and there is always, with this particular story, a but. The same week those sources were describing Harry's private hopes, a different set of facts was accumulating in a different register entirely. Tom Bower's book Betrayal, published 4 days ago, already #1 on Amazon, already the subject of a formal Sussex rebuttal, includes a passage that speaks directly to this situation. According to Bower's account, King Charles has been advised, repeatedly, by more than one person in his immediate circle, that any reconciliation with Harry and Meghan that includes Sandringham carries institutional risks the palace is not currently positioned to absorb. Those risks are specific. The first is William. The Prince of Wales has made his position known, not through public statements, but through the consistent pattern of his behaviour. He was not in London when Harry testified at the High Court in January. He has not spoken to Harry, according to sources on both sides, in any sustained way for well over a year. A Sandringham invitation from Charles is not simply a father extending warmth to a son. Within the architecture of the royal family, it is a signal that the rupture is not final, that the institution has not closed its account with the Duke of Sussex. And William, who is that institution's future, has given every indication that he does not share his father's willingness to keep the door ajar. The second risk is timing. Harry and Meghan land in Australia in 16 days, collecting speaking fees, headlining luxury retreats, filming content for potential streaming deals, doing all of it while carrying titles that belong to an institution they publicly and comprehensively attacked. A Sandringham invitation, reported as under active consideration right now, places the palace in the position of appearing to endorse a commercial tour that the Australian government has just formally classified as a private trip. Buckingham Palace has declined to comment. That silence is not neutrality. It is a position. King Charles is 76 years old. He has cancer. He is fighting, while simultaneously managing a family situation with no precedent in modern royal history, navigating the Andrew scandal, the erosion of Commonwealth monarchical sentiment, and the looming question of the William era. And doing all of it without the one thing that made the hardest moments manageable. He does not have a united family behind him. He has an heir who is disciplined and visibly unwilling to revisit 2020. He has a second son in California, hoping. And between those two positions, William's controlled forward movement and Harry's backward-reaching hope, Charles sits, ill and aging, trying to be both a king and a father in circumstances where those two roles are pulling in opposite directions. Sources describe the king as someone who has not given up on Harry, not privately. He thinks about Archie, 6 years old, growing up in Montecito, knowing his grandfather primarily through video calls. He thinks about Lilibet, 4 years old, named after the great-grandmother she met only once before that great-grandmother died. These are not abstractions for Charles. They are the specific texture of what the rupture actually costs. The king would, if the conditions were right, welcome his son's family to Sandringham. The conditions, as of March 30th, 2026, are not right. Here is the cruelest arithmetic in this story. For Harry's hope to become an invitation, several things must align simultaneously that currently are not aligned at all. William would need to, at minimum, not actively resist a Sussex presence. The Australia trip would need to conclude without the kind of reputational incident that makes reconciliation politically untenable. And Harry himself would need to signal, not publicly, not through a press statement, but through whatever private channel still exists, that the invitation, if it came, would be received as family rather than as content. That last condition is the most complicated. Not because Harry is cynical, but because the machinery around him has made it structurally almost impossible to do anything privately anymore. His memoir was private once. His grief over Diana was private once. His relationship with Meghan was private for approximately 4 months in 2016. There is no private left in Harry's life. And so the question of whether a Sandringham visit could happen without becoming a story, without being photographed, without being reported by the same Sunday Times sources currently describing his hope, is not a question with an obvious answer. Royal historian Dr. Ed Owens, speaking to the Times this week, framed it with the kind of precision that is far more devastating than tabloid hyperbole. He said the challenge facing both the King and the Duke of Sussex is that every gesture between them now carries institutional weight that normal family communications simply do not carry. A phone call between a father and a son, Dr. Owens noted, has not been just a phone call in this family for at least 4 years. He is right. And that observation, so quiet, so accurate, so genuinely sad, contains everything the titles and petitions and Netflix deals and Amazon bestsellers have been circling around without quite naming. The Bower allegation that Camilla privately described Meghan as having brainwashed Harry forces into the open the question the palace has never directly addressed. What exactly do the working members of the royal family think of Meghan Markle? Not as a character in a narrative, but as a person who might be arriving at Sandringham this summer. The Sussex spokesperson called Bower someone who constructs elaborate theories about people he has never met. Those are strong words. They are also, notably, words about the author rather than words about Camilla. The Queen's office has said nothing. That silence, again, is not nothing. Charles wants his grandchildren. That appears from multiple sourced accounts to be genuine. He understands, at a level perhaps sharpened by illness, that time is the one thing that cannot be negotiated back once it is gone. Archie and Lilibet are growing up. Within a decade, they will be teenagers with their own complicated relationships to their identity and their place in the Windsor story. The window in which a grandfather can simply be a grandfather, playing on the grounds at Sandringham, teaching a 6-year-old something ordinary and entirely private, is not indefinitely open. Harry knows this. It is why the word his sources use is hope, not strategy. Whether that is worth anything depends entirely on whether the invitation, if it comes, represents a real opening or a managed moment. And that question, is this real or is this managed, is the one that has haunted every development in the Sussex story since the day they sat down with Oprah in that Santa Barbara garden. On March 30th, 2026, Harry is preparing to fly to Australia in less than 3 weeks. His father is at Sandringham. His brother is carrying out the institutional work of the monarchy Harry left. His children are in Montecito, too young to fully understand the inheritance they carry. Sources say the king has not yet responded to the signals sent through back channels. The palace has not confirmed any invitation is under consideration. William's position has not changed. But the sources are speaking, and the specific word they keep reaching for, hope, is not deployed casually by people close to this family. It is chosen precisely because everything harder and more definitive has already been tried and found insufficient. Hope is what remains when the legal strategies have run their course, and the Netflix deals have been renegotiated, and the memoir has been published, and the Oprah interview has aired, and all of it, has failed to resolve the one thing that appears in the quiet, private accounting of a 41-year-old man thousands of miles from where he was born to actually matter. Whether Sandringham happens this summer is not a question about public relations or institutional risk management. It is a question about whether a family, which has done extraordinary damage to itself in public and over years and before millions of witnesses, has anything left that belongs only to them. The king is 76. The grandchildren are 6 and 4. The summer is 12 weeks away. And Harry, for the first time in a very long time, is not making demands. He is not filing motions, not releasing statements, not arranging for cameras. He is just hoping. Whether that is enough, whether hoping, at this point in this story, from this distance, after all of this, is a question that only one man in England can answer, and that man has not yet spoken.